Hi, everybody. Welcome to TCL 62 week one, which is our second weekly sync meeting, having completed our first actual week of doing TCL stuff. So we did just before I hit the record button, kind of ran through a little bit of the pre-meeting chat, but right off the bat, how is everybody feeling about their first week doing stuff with TCL? Good, bad? I don't know.
Good.
Good, yeah. It's kind of just, kind of navigating GitHub and Git and yeah, it's good. It's good learnings.
Anything we want to talk about or questions that we had before we go diving into the regularly scheduled agenda? Okay. I will hand over to Jeremiah then. We'll do kind of our demos portion. I'll let you kind of intro into that, and then we'll kind of talk through what we want to do for that today, given it's our first week of doing that type of thing. So I'll just go ahead and hand it over to you to start.
Okay. So demos are typically just showing what the finished product looks like the issue for the week, and then talking about which bits of the code you changed, which files you worked in, and then like why you implemented it the way that you did, why your team decided to do that. And then typically we take turns. So week one, we had Jenny and Magda on a team, and then we had Hans and Archa on a team. So if one of you wants to go first, you can offer it up. Otherwise, we'll probably do it in the issue order. So the team who had issue one would go first, and then issue two would go second. And then yeah, typically you screen share. There are a few ways you can do it. It's better if you can show the changes on the live version of the site if you can, rather than on localhost. But either way, it's fine. And then when I'm doing it, I typically just like to look through it on GitHub, since it shows all of the file differences in one place. But if you need to, you can use VS Code if that's easier. There isn't really a better way to do it. So we ready to get started to do our demos?
Yeah. I can get going. Unless Hans, you'd like to go. Cool. All right. Let me share my screen. Desktop. Let's see. Get to our shopping list project.
Are you looking for the? Oh no, you got it. Never mind.
Sweet. Let's okay, so we'll start with what a user would see. So here's the homepage of our shopping list, and what Magdalena and I worked on this week was building in the was on the list page. So we'll go there. And so we're displaying all of the names of the items in the shopping list. And so pretty basic, the code. Any questions here?
Nope, looks good. Did you run into any issues figuring out how to get this to plug in?
Yeah, I think initially there was some, just kind of getting like acquainted with the code base, and just, what, how the different components kind of work together, and, the kind of the flow of data. And so, yeah, I think, you know, we didn't encounter any like big roadblocks. I think it was just like kind of getting familiar with the code base, the existing code base.
Awesome.
Let's see. Okay, so let's jump into the code. Oh, let's see. You want to go through GitHub. Let's do that. Okay, so yeah, so for this issue, we spent, I guess all of the changes were in the list component. Which is in our views. So the list component was already set up to kind of receive the shopping list data from our Firebase database. And so we were tasked with displaying each of the items from the list of items. And so we did that within this list, unordered list tag, and we used the map higher order method to kind of to map through or to list out all of the items. And so to display each of the items, we used the list item component and all the built-in kind of CSS there. And made sure that each item in a list, it's a good idea to have a key. So we have, we just use the index. Learning for, I believe both Magdalena and I, compliments of Lyle, was including this null check, just in case we receive like no data. We don't want our entire list component to break. So this is a good check.
Did you actually play with putting a null in the component just to see that breaking? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Let me do that here. Can you guys see my VS Code?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. So here in the app component is where we're passing the our list element, excuse me, our list component, some data. So here, I think if we do, I think this should work. Let me start. Let's see if this breaks it. Or it doesn't break it. Okay,
Well, you might
cool.
see an error in the console related to something like that. So if you do, yeah, right click and inspect, then
Well, let's
maybe.
do it again. Let's
or not. And either way, the list didn't show
Well,
up. So
it wouldn't break
oh,
because
you
you
have the
have
null
that
check
check
in
in
there.
there. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So if
Oh,
you
but
didn't have
let's
that in there, then it would break.
Right.
okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So maybe let's do it the other way then. Let's see, just like see what happens when it does break.
Yeah, because it'll say like that null types don't have a map method attached or something like that.
Oh, sweet. Let's see. Okay, so we're just gonna take this out. Okay.
Yeah, and you can see the red in the
Oh
background, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
there she is. Okay. Okay, so we got a type error. Yep, exactly. Like you said, Jeremiah. Cannot read properties of null.
And then your
Sweet.
whole, like, all of your page is broken
Ooh,
now, which
yeah.
is what the thing we were trying to avoid. So anyway, we'll talk about that more in code review. It's just one of those things that, like, I try and do when I pull down code is like try and figure out how to break it. And then offer
Yeah.
suggestions like that. So
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
For that, I
Okay.
don't want to commit that now, but yeah, that looks
Great.
great.
Awesome. Yeah, so that was
Looks
our
good.
feature.
And then, Hans, are you ready to demo?
Yeah, for sure. So we had, let me just get the share screen up. I'm still kind of learning how to navigate things like Zoom. I know that sounds weird in 2023, but my experience is limited. So your patience is requested. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool. So here we got the let's see here. This is my local host version of it. Our current code has not been merged into main. So this is, the kind of blank site as is. However, put in the just as a for instance slash list, we do have the code from our collabs in there. So that's kind of neat and stuff. But so this was our issue. We were tasked with using the built-in navlink component, which is a part of React Router, to actually make these links do something. As you can see, you click them, it just looks for the pound sign within the code, because that's what we have on main here. If we're within the layout.jsx, which is where we put things, presently within the kind of template version of it that we're working off of, all the links are tagged to have these anchor tags, which just go to empty pound signs that do nothing. But let's drop over to the working version, that or our branch rather, and you can see here imported the nav link from React Router DOM and then implemented it down here within the JSX of the layout component. So navlink in this case we have for home goes to this check here, and this all is working. So if let's see, if I drop over to my local host, it does. We click through home, look to the home page, list, look to the list page, add item, hello from the add item page. So that stuff is working on our end. I'm sure that once we merge that, then like click list, for instance, we will see particle accelerator, etc. on there. Let's see what else. Here's our pull request, I guess. Yeah, I think that's what we put in there. I do have some questions regarding just sort of like workflow with the merging and pull and reviewing and stuff like that. But beyond that, this was what me and Archa added to the project this week.
Yeah, sweet. So what are your questions?
Well, I guess I'm still kind of confused in terms of like what is the process for, like, are we supposed to be merging our own PRs once they get approved by like the mentors and the collabs and stuff?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So there's a reason why we want to do it that way. And now this will actually vary by different organizations. Some workplaces actually only want their principal senior lead person to do the actual merging of the code, and other places will say do the approvals and then merge it yourself. We're doing the merge it yourself here because in the future you may need to handle merge conflicts. So if you have two PRs going in at the same time on the same piece of code, you may need to communicate between each other as to who goes first, then who will pull in the changes and manage the conflict, kind of as they go. And that's something that is good for the group to work through and not having mentors click buttons for you. So that's why we're going to have you do the button clicking, yourself as you go through. And then when we get through the peer review portion, we want to be sure also then to get the mentor review portion to come in, and then we'll usually pretty quickly kind of do a walkthrough and leave comments as we do, and then say like, yep, looks good, or please change this. And then once we get all those approvals from mentors and your peers, then we go click the merge button and you're all set. One thing I do want to draw your attention to while you're still here on this PR page, if you scroll up, so if for some reason we don't end up merged by the time we're doing demos like today, scroll down a little bit actually in the first comment under here. So see this URL, go ahead and click on that.
Right there.
Yep. So our pipeline, our GitHub Actions will actually deploy your code out to a branch.
Okay, cool.
Deploy your branch out to a custom URL. So if you go down and click, your code should be working and it should be live and reachable on the entire internet. So
yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So if you don't want people to have to pull down your code, it is up there and live and visible, so we can play with it, and then that kind of thing, which can be super useful. So cool. Just a thing to note. But otherwise, this looks really good. The only other question I had was the class names. Are they doing anything right now that we're adding on those elements?
These doohickeys right here.
Yeah.
The pending is pending. I'm not sure because I didn't look at the CSS to compare that with the class names, and I don't believe so, because based on like this ternary operator right there, I don't think that there are any class names to like kind of match that at all. So
look at the very last one. Check the very last one.
On the class names?
Yeah.
Oh, dot active. There we go. So
yeah, so look at your branch, and then look at like the main branch, like the active website.
Okay. Here's the active site.
Yeah, so if we're here, we can see that all of the links in the nav at the bottom are like a little bit bigger in text size, a little bit thicker, and then they all have that underline. And then if you click on your branch,
not there.
Yeah, so yours aren't like that. So if you open up your terminal, or sorry, your console.
Right click and inspect. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And then click on yep, and then click on the nav, like any of those.
Yeah.
So click on it. So it has the class active in it. So go back to the main one and then do the same thing. Or the live one.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's on there.
So yeah, so do you notice any differences between the classes?
I mean, yeah, classes linked to nav link and
so in the CSS that you're looking at, all of the CSS that's a part of like the starter project, and this isn't the huge biggest deal because we're gonna do styling at the end, but it's a good idea to like leave as much of the code the same as you can when you're updating things. So that navlink CSS right there is just because we're using the navlink component is why it's named that way. The navlink component doesn't actually add that CSS to each of the anchors that it creates. So you would need to like manually add that CSS into the class name and then add the active or the I forget what the other one is, how you implemented it. So there are a few ways to do that. You could use like string concatenation or string I forget what it's called, but where you use like the backtick character to write the string, so that way it has both of those parts in it, because the CSS isn't going to get applied unless you have the nav link in there too.
Okay.
So looks like the active is getting applied. So the code itself is working. It's just that there's no styles to match it yet. But this is what Jeremiah said. we really shouldn't worry about it too much until we get to the styling portions, which kind of the last 2 weeks are going to be go to town and have fun and make it look like however you want. So it's actually something it's probably good to be chewing on for the next little while as to what you think like you might want to do in terms of how it look and feel, and maybe tooling or frameworks that you want to bring in and play with. But not yet. So it's all
Okay.
good. I was just checking. So anyway, sorry, Jeremiah, I'll let you finish doing the demos bit.
Cool. I think that's kind of all I have to demo. Then in that case, do you want me to like before merging this? Do you want me to kind of fix that styling error in there and then create another PR, or like what's the what are we doing about that?
I think it's probably fine the way it is.
Okay.
So yeah, I would just hit the merge pull request and then just keep that in mind for when we do styles at the end, that we might want to have some differences between those at the bottom, depending on whether or not they're like the page that you're on or not.
Good to know. And then I guess my last, do you want us writing comments when we do confirm merge requests or merges for pull requests?
I wouldn't unless you feel like you need to.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you click confirm merge, I think something pops up that says you can delete the branch if you want. Yeah. And then after like a minute or two, it should be merged into the main branch, and then you'll be able
Okay.
to see it on like our production site after it builds.
Yeah. Gotta let it do its thing first. Cool.
Yeah.
Gotta move through the tubes, and then it will show up on the proper web.
Yeah.
Hooray! We merged. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. Everything's in there, and I think also one other thing is that like you may have noticed the cards themselves will move on the GitHub Actions board down the line into which should be now the done state. So yep, they're both in there.
Boom.
I'll tell you.
Projects up at the top.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Done. Boom. Cool.
And this is a fairly typical looking Kanban style project board, by the way, where you sort of have the pile of things to get done, and then you just move them from left to right across the board. It's pretty much in most workplaces these days, depending on if they're bounded by sprints or not, as to whether or not they'll look different than this, but otherwise it's pretty normal. All right, I'm going to now steal your screen, and we're going to talk about code reviews. Oh, go ahead.
Question for I guess more for the mentors. Have you all seen a lot of the like I guess project management being handled in GitHub like this, or other tools used?
It really, really depends. I think by far the most popular one right now is the Atlassian suite with Jira and stuff, which actually doesn't look too dramatically different from GitHub. GitHub's is just generally pared down a little bit less feature rich, but it also is more directly integrated with GitHub itself. So it's just right there and it's easy to use for small teams. So I'm actually using work GitHub action and projects and all that stuff right now. I have used Jira in the past. I've used Rally. I've used sticky notes on the whiteboard. It just depends on all the different things that people want to do. But again, they all kind of follow the same pattern. So if you've seen this, you'll have seen a bunch. Yeah. Just a link to Jira. That's a link to Jira. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, it looks exactly the same with like the to do and progress and review done.
Oh, yeah. Sweet. Thank you. Yeah,
And
totally.
they'll all have hooks into GitHub and Bitbucket and all the other things. So they all will perform similar functionality of automating, moving the cards around if you want them to. which can be a good and a bad thing depending on what you're doing.
Cool.
Okay, can you all see my screen at the moment? So here. Okay, so we're gonna talk about code reviews for a minute. Can I do full screen on you? Hooray. Okay, so we just did one. Hooray. But we're gonna talk about code reviews a little bit more in depth, which in my opinion is one of the most nerve-wracking parts of going into software engineering. Because it is the part that makes you feel the most exposed and on display, and is inherently an activity of critiquing your work, which is really not the way we want to think about it, but I think is one of the ones that gets people's imposter syndrome the most activated, kind of as they go in and start to do this activity. So what we're going to talk about real quick is creating and switching branch. This is not what I wanted to do. This is not the right slides. Hold on. I'm on the wrong. Sorry. Got a little hasty in opening things up. This is the code reviews module. Let's try that. Okay. That's better. We're going to talk about what a code review is. We're going to talk about the code review life cycle, what makes a good code review different from a great code review, how can you help others review your code, and how can you review others' code, and then looking at code in GitHub, which we actually just did a little bit of. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. So what is a code review? It's a conversation. It is not an opportunity to have your code picked apart and critiqued and to judge you as a person based on the code that you wrote, right? Like this is all about what is going into the common code base that we share and making sure that we all understand and agree on the changes that are going in. It's one of the best places to share your knowledge and learn from others. So as you're working through a problem, when you're developing code, you will likely have learned some stuff. And it's a good idea to transfer that knowledge to the other people on your team. And going through your code review is a great way to do that. Why did you put this code in here? What problems were you trying to solve? Similarly, on the other end, when you're reading through people's code, you want to learn from their experiences and pick up that knowledge as well. So try and figure out not just like paying attention to syntax, but what is actually going on here that you need to pay attention to. It is a collaborative space. So this is not something where we like, again, this is not an individual effort where you putting code in and we have to like make sure you are good enough or not. This is for everybody to ensure that the code we all work on is the way we want it to be. And it's also a good opportunity for you to ask questions about the code, kind of like I was just doing a second ago and saying like, hey, what about these styles? Did you try breaking it this way? You know, did you do that kind of stuff? You know, and really try and help you understand and see what you can see. And it's should make you better as a developer. Again, it helps your team decentralize the knowledge so it's spread along everybody else, helps everybody share the responsibility, and it improves the code base quality because we're all looking at it before it gets committed and moved into production or, you know, deployment of the code. Pretty simple cycle. So we're going to open a pull request, as we kind of talked about before. Opening a pull request, or at least a draft pull request early into the process is a good idea to get that conversation started and flowing with the changes that you're trying to make. Again, when you think you're done and you think this is in a spot where you're ready to commit it, that's when you want to change it into a formal pull request, where now you can say like, yes, I approve this, or I don't approve this, and here's why. You're going to receive feedback on it, and sometimes you're going to get asked to make changes. You're going to make those changes, you're going to seek feedback again. So you might re-notify people and say like, hey, I made the changes that you asked me to. Can you look at this again and see if now this is something that makes sense and we think is good enough to go into code? And then once that cycle's happened a few different times and everybody's like, yep, LGTM looks good to me, then we go ahead and click the merge button and get it into the shared code base. Things that make a good code review. Don't focus on stylistic changes. This will still happen to you regardless. And the reason is because as people are reading your code, they are going to try and focus on your content, and they might get distracted by little syntactic, stylish things that come along. And that's why we want to try and minimize those as much as possible. So both as the reader and the code reviewer, try to avoid making those types of comments. And if you see enough of them that it's bothering you, make an out of band suggestion to improve the linter, improve prettier, improve some other tooling. Editor configs all will automatically style for you. So try and get our robots to handle as much of the cleanup and formatting for us as we can, because they really distract from the actual contents of the code review, which should be about what is the code actually doing that we're putting into the code base, and do we agree with the approaches that are being taken. So any of these stylistic things, try to avoid them on both ends. The only one I take an issue with is D. You're calling 2 uppercase on a number. Actually kind of sounds like it might be a bug to me, not a style thing, but whatever. Try out the feature locally in a test environment. So what I did with both branches was I actually pulled down your code and I spun it up. So I checked out your branch locally and I ran it and I put null in, I looked at the styles, I do that kind of stuff, so that I can see. And I'm one of those people who are going to do that. I'm a touch person. I'm not like a read person. So I need to like play with it and see to really fully understand. But it's just a good way to review code in general. If you're crunched for time, you can stay in GitHub and just use the pull request thing, but it's better if you can actually run it yourself. And make sure that what's going on here is something that you're going to not only be able to read now, but something that you're going to understand when you come back to it a month, 6 months, a year later. It's a famous meme in software engineering to be like, oh, who wrote this junk? Oh, it was me from 3 months ago, right? Like, yeah, that's something to think about as well, as the future maintainability of the code. You want to say keep up with praise. Remember, this is all people trying to show you that their work and the hard work that they've been doing, and coming in and with a negative attitude is a great way to sow discontent among the team. So you want to call out the good things as we see it and encourage people for doing the right thing. And remember, this is not something that we want people to be afraid of doing. We want people to want to come to you with code reviews to show you the work that they're doing and to make everything happy and good. And default to approval. Stop the code if you think there's a good reason that it shouldn't go to production. If you want to clean up or make minor cosmetic improvements, save those for a later thing. But getting functionality out the door is generally more important. And so we want to, default to approval whenever we can. Again, be kind and empathetic. And you really, the code review from the writer's side, from the requester's side, is there to help people understand what you're doing. So we're going to talk about a couple of ways to make that easier as well. So running the code is a big one. Just lets you know that what you did works. Again, like I will put null things in there and see if I need a null check there, if it was already covered, or click around and see if I can break it in some other way. And if you bang around like a user might, then you go like, yeah, actually I think this is pretty good, or oh, ooh, I found some things I wouldn't have maybe seen by just reading it through. And if you have special things that you want people to test when they do that activity, when you write the PR, put those in the PR description. Say, hey, when you're running this, pull it down, type in, apple banana cat, and apple banana cat will cause an explosion, and that's what you want to see, or something. You know what I mean? Like, tell people what to do to see the steps. This is especially helpful when you're dealing with bugs. So when you create a PR to fix a bug, tell people how to make the bug happen and what they should see instead of the bug happening the next time you put it out there. It should be in the bug issue of how to reproduce the bug, but people don't always do that helpfully when they're writing bug reports for you. And then if you're not sure what's going on, ask questions. That's evergreen advice, no matter where you are. Just keep asking questions. That's what we're here for. How can I help others review my code? So a meaningful PR description. So fill out the PR template if there is one. If there's not one, suggest one. PR templates are great. They give you a nice rubric for adding things. But don't just be like, I fixed code when you're doing the description. You know what I mean? Like, tell us what's going on so that we have context when we go through and read it. Same thing with commit messages. Typing in like this works or nailed it, like doesn't really tell people who go through and read the commit history what you did in that specific commit. I'm guilty of making a lot of small commits. I tend to like try something and commit and try something and commit, and then I might roll back and then, do a couple of different things. So my commits might be a little bit light on messaging and history, but I'll still try and make them say something useful anyway, so that when I do a lot of commits, I can roll back to something that was meaningful in time. Review the code yourself. Try and pretend you're a code reviewer before you submit the PR, and look through the eyes of people who are going to read your code and see if you can catch anything, and then use things like Loom, Sketch, Zappy. Screenshots are always great. GIFs are awesome, or little videos if you can. So show the behavior. Again, as much as I say, like, I would love to pull down every PR I ever get and run through that code, I'm not always going to have the time. So things that show me in the PR of what's going on so I can see it without needing to do that myself are helpful, and gives me context for if I do decide to pull it down, what to go and look for myself. So the more just fill it out, just help the people reading your code review to know what they're going to see when they get in there. GitHub has pretty decent tooling for a lot of stuff, so you can see, the files that have changed, the number of lines that have changed. It's always a flex thing to say, like, yep, I deleted 500 lines of code and only added 5, and cleaned up your inefficient, spaghetti mess into something clean and elegant, right? Don't let people do that. And navigating around between, forward. I think this screenshot's a little bit dated, but it's still basically the same content. The commits, you can look through each individual commit, so you can see what people were thinking in time as they updated that. With people like me, that might be a little bit dizzying, but if you only did 2 commits, sometimes that's useful. And that kind of stuff. And just play around in GitHub and the PR and that stuff, and click buttons and familiarize yourself is probably the best way to go about dealing with all of that type of thing. Kind of same thing as you're walking through doing a review. So you may have noticed I made several comments on my pull request, my review, and then I submitted them all at once. And as you're going through doing the review, you can kind of check things off yourself. And it'll say, start review as you start adding comments, and then you can make sure all of the stuff you're saying about a pull request is good before you submit it all at once. And then people can walk through, they can check off resolving conversation. So if you say, hey, you should fix this, people can individually click and say, yep, I fixed that, as they walk through. So you can see that all of your code review comments got addressed, or they might explicitly say, I'm not fixing this, you're wrong. That happens a lot too.
Hey, Lyle, is this the same thing as like when you are on the PR, and you click that like resolved or like resolved conversation?
I think the viewed is more for the reviewer. So the specific thing that we're looking on in the screenshot, the thing I was just mentioning was a similar thing, which is that resolve conversation. But it's another one of those, just as you walk through it, tool to go through and say, did I look at everything that I was supposed to look at type of checkbox.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Okay. So now we get to the let's talk to you guys portion of the Git code review learning module. So who's done this in the past anywhere outside of TCL doing code reviews? And no, nothing. Cool. So this is all green stuff for all of you. Okay, great.
I did like a version of it in my boot camp, but nothing as good as of like a replication as this of like a real world environment.
Interesting. Well, that's good to know then. What we've done in the past cohorts, which might be valuable doing again. So we did a little bit of that today with walking through your PR live in the session. The other thing that we can do is for office hours, if you specifically want us to walk through a code review live with you, we definitely can do that as well. And that's good not only just to see someone reviewing your code in real time and see their thought processes as they're going through it, but an interactive session like that is also probably a good one to ask kind of questions about that and the whole process as well. So at least doing that once during office hours is I think a good activity. We can do it more than once for sure. But so if you get to office hour time, and I will post mine for this week, if this week's not a good week for that particular activity, we can do it on any other one. But just consider like, hey, if you want to try and have code ready to go by office hours, we can review them live and go through that whole process, which I think is helpful. And honestly, there are going to be in your career pull requests that you're going to make that you want to have people sit down with you and go through them, so that you can talk it through. Sometimes you can write things down and put comments in GitHub, but it's sometimes just not enough to talk things through. So doing a live code review session is a thing you will end up doing quite a bit during your career as well. So anything from this week that you thought about with code reviews themselves, insights, questions that you have? Pretty much ignore the questions on the slide. What are your thoughts here? No questions?
I think for
Okay.
me, it's like it's just like familiarizing myself with kind of how code reviews work, how they show up in the PR. You know, it's like, okay, there's all these comments. Which code is it referring to, right? So just like kind of learning to read the comments, you know, and just like closing them out and yeah, I think it was definitely like, and I suspect it'll get kind of like a smoother process as, you know, the more we do it. Yeah.
Well, it is one of those things that feels weird, and like you develop a muscle memory thing for it as you do a food one, and then you're just kind of like, okay. And every PR tool is a little bit different, so they all like, if you're not using GitHub for it and you do some other thing, then it's the same idea, but all the buttons are different and the flow changes just slightly, and you'll be like, and then you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I will link these. There are billions of words out on the internet about code reviews. So you can follow through and read through just stuff on your heart's content. There's a couple of them, Atlassian, Smart Bear, GitHub, you know, like everybody's got notes on how to do code reviews. So I'll link the slides here when we're later. But yeah, just know that you can spend years reading about code reviews on the internet. So okay. Yeah, we got 10 minutes left. Jeremiah, I'm going to hand it over to you again to do the assignments
Issues.
for the week.
Okay, cool.
If I can figure out where my Zoom toolbar went.
Okay. And then I'm gonna go here. And then just really quick while we were still on code reviews, like this is one of the issues from last week, one of the PRs. And then it does look really similar to the slides. If you go up here to files changed, you can see like in red and green like what the differences are. So that way, when you pull down the code, you know exactly where to go and what to look at. That's usually the first thing I do, so that way I know like which files to work in, especially on really big projects. It's easier to know like which files have been like touched and which ones you don't have to worry about. And then for this week, we have Magda and Hans, and then Jenny and Archa for the two teams. And then for our tickets, our issues, so we have 3 and 4 that we are going to serve out and get done over the course of the week. So 3 is, as a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so I can start tracking purchased items. So right now you have a token in your project in the local storage that is called my test list. So we want users to be able to swap to different lists rather than just all of them being on that same one. My test list. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to have to change a few things. So we need to get a new unique token. we're going to save the token to local storage, and then we're going to show the user the list view. So we're going to put them on the list page where they can see the like the shopping list that got added this week. So for the acceptance criteria, the AC, the Collab Lab has an NPM package called it's at the Collab Lab shopping list utils. So we want to add that as a dependency. We want to remove my test list in app.jsx and replace it with null. So that way users don't get added to the my test list when they open up the app. And then if the user doesn't already have a token, they are going to be redirected to the list page from the home page. There's going to be a button on the home page that lets them create a new list, and then clicking the button, clicking the button generates a new token and saves it to local storage using the set list token function in app.jsx. And then once the token has been created and saved, the user is redirected to the list view. So it's, this and then this are the same, but it just depends on whether or not they have a list already. So yeah, if they do already have a token, then we want to redirect them straight to the list page without creating a new one and all that. And then for the notes, the generate token function in the shopping list utils package is used to generate a token, and then you can look at it in the documentation. So here's the npm package for it. You just do npm I to install it, and then there are a few different like bits of like utility functions in there. So there's generate token, words, and calculate estimate. Right now we're just using the generate token one. And if you're curious about how it's implemented, you can look at the GitHub repo for it. It's all in here. And then the setlist token takes one argument, the new list token. So when you are setting the token for like the new shopping list that the user is going to be on, you just give it the string that you get from generate token. And then eventually the Helcom homepage will look like this. So just to give you an idea of like what's going to be on it. So the create new list button that we talked about is here. Later they'll be able to join a list based on, other users' tokens. So if they want to be on the same list as other people, they'll be able to do that with a future issue. And then for the story, it's sufficient just to have a simple create list button. And then you don't have to save the token to Firestore. That's going to happen when you add an item to it, add your first item to it. But you can do that if you want when you're generating the tokens. So that way, the difference is going to be whether or not users can join a like an empty list or not. But it's not something that I would worry about right now. But if you want to dive deep, you can do that. And then for issue number 4, as a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so I can start recording purchases. So users need to be able to add items to their shopping list. To do that, the add item view should present them with a form that allows them to enter the name of the item and an estimate of when they think they'll need to buy it again. So this is that third page that we haven't really touched yet because there's the home page, the list page, and the add item page. So for the AC, we have UI related tasks. So the add item view displays a form that allows the user to enter the name of an item and select how soon they think they're going to need to buy it again. There should be 3 choices. So soon would be, I think I'm going to need it in 7 days. Kind of soon would be, I think I'm going to need it in around 14 days. And not soon would be, I think I'm going to need it in around 30 days. The input that accepts the name of the item has a semantic label element associated with it. So you need an input and a label. And then as like a test to make sure that your code works the way it should, the user can submit the form with both the mouse and the enter key. And then when the user submits the form, they should see a message indicating that the item either was or was not saved to the database. So that's all stuff for the user to be able to see. For the data related tasks inside the code right now, there's a console.log and the add item function in source API Firebase. And we want to replace that with a function that actually adds new documents to the Firestore database. So actually adds like shopping items. And then that's going to be from the Firebase Firestore NPM package. And then the user soon, not soon, kind of soon choice is used to calculate next purchase date. I believe this one's done for you. That's why it's checked already. And then when the feature is implemented correctly, the new item should automatically show up in the list because this stream list item gets new data from Firestore whenever there's a change to the Firestore database. So when you either hit enter or you click on the submit button, when you go over to the list page, you should see your new item on the page itself. And then you'll know the label is correctly implemented if you click on the label and the keyboard focus moves to the input. So you can look at the docs if you want. So that just means you're gonna have like some text about what an input is for, and then the input itself. And you should be able to click on the text to be able to highlight to select the input. And then users will be able to submit the form with the enter key if you listen for the right JavaScript event on the right element. So you shouldn't have to add an on key down anywhere. It's more simple than that. And then the add item form has a lot of stuff that you might end up adding to it. So we have a wireframe with some notes. So this is the label that we were talking about. So if you click on the item name, it should move your cursor, your highlighted, like where you're typing to where it says eggs. And then you'll have these like radio buttons where you can click on like how soon you think you're going to need to buy the item again. And then you have your button to submit it. And then those are our two issues for the week. Does either team have a preference on which issue they want to tackle, or we can do it randomly? And then I guess Jenny, you'll be choosing for you and Archa.
Yeah, I don't mind taking the number 4, the adding an item if y'all don't have a preference.
I'm okay with that as well. That would put number 3 on me and Magda. So as long as Magda's cool with that, I'm cool with it.
Oh no, I didn't mean to do
I'm good.
myself. Okay.
Adding a library and everything.
Yeah.
Jeremiah, you're not supposed to be working these tasks. You're
Yeah,
supposed to
that
leave it
was
for them.
I forgot that you could assign yourself on accident. Okay.
I know
So
you're excited. You just need to calm down.
yeah, that's true. Okay. And then we have Archa. And then it's not this, right? It's
Oh, I made it
code.
confusing. Yeah, it's code.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I was like, I know what it is, but I want to see if it shows up the other way. Okay. And then yeah, both of these are going to be a little bit harder than the ones that we had last week. But both teams got through their issues pretty swiftly, so I don't see there being any issues. Yeah.
By the way, in the last cohort, we called the ticket/issue a tissue, just as a way to portmanteau that up.
Yeah. Thanks, Stacey.
All right.
I have just a quick question about kind of things going forward. Are we ever going to run into an instance where of like the two tasks that we're working on that week, one is dependent on the other, so that like the work that one team puts in is going to kind of rely on the work of another team?
No, you never end up where you need the other team to finish before you do. But there may be instances where you are working on the same bits of code. Because there is potential for like merge conflicts where like you want to submit yours, but the code is different than what you started with. But yeah, the issues are intentionally set up so that way if you're working on things, it could be building off of the previous week's issues or any previous code that you've written, but it'll never be like the complementary issue to yours, like the one that's happening at the same time.
And I have another kind of just silly GitHub question. If I'm on the projects page for TCL 62, is there a direct link to bring me back to the kind of main code page from the projects page?
I think I would just click in the breadcrumbs at the top.
This takes you back to here.
That takes me back to the lab main page.
Yeah, but if you go to right next to where the projects at the top, top. Yeah, scroll over right there. No, is that back to the darn it?
Yeah, I
Um,
I remember wondering the same thing, and I don't think I ever figured it out. If you click on
Okay.
these, you can go back to the issues themselves, which is inside your project. But I don't know if you can get to like the home bit of it. Because yeah, all of these link back directly to our repo.
Okay.
Yeah, it is kind of weird that projects are like in their own place.
GitHub contributing to tab entropy.
Yeah.
As the length of time that a browser window is open approaches infinity, the number of open tabs also approaches infinity, but the cohesion between tabs approaches 0.
Yeah.
It's me being a nerd.
Try to organize them from left to right and being related to each other, but farthest left and farthest right are not close at all. And then we did have a question about like how like the flow of it inside the orientation. If you scroll down a little bit, there's like a lot of information in here, but I like sent this to myself on Slack when I was collabby at the beginning, just so that way I could remember like when things were supposed to happen. So Monday through Wednesday, the goal is to like meet with your partner. And then by Thursday, hopefully you request feedback from the other pair. Friday, you would request it from the mentors and then implemented any changes from the other pair if they ask for that. And then Saturday would be like implementing feedback until the PR is done and then merge it so it's ready for the Sunday sync. And it doesn't have to follow that flow, but the like order of things is what matters. So you work on it, you ask the other team, you ask the mentors, you merge it.
That's a good reminder. Thank you.
I will try and get our video posted up here quicker than I did this last time onto YouTube so that other people can watch it who aren't here. I will try and do that relatively promptly in most weeks, but I might forget. And if you'd like, hey, I want this on YouTube, just be like, get your lazy butt posting the video. Just it takes like you have to download it, then you have to upload it again. So it's like you have to like dedicate like a half-hour block of time for that to all happen. So anyway. All right. Last questions, comments, concerns before we wrap it up and get after it for the next week.
No questions.
Okay. Get out there and crush it. You guys are doing great. It's going to be awesome. We'll post little remindery things in Slack. Please be noisy. Ask questions if you got them. I will set up office hours for the week and get after it. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.